listening to Bishop.
Great. So I don't know if everyone heard that, but good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, June 23rd. We appreciate you for joining us here at Wearable Tech Ventures for our Discover Wearable Tech Summer Workshop Series. I am Lakeisha Greenway, the founder of Wearable Tech Ventures, a 501c3 based out of Baltimore, Maryland. And I'm ecstatic that we have amazing guests today joining us from the Open Innovation team at Under Armour. Lauren Hamlin and Dr. Matt Trexler, whom I will introduce shortly. But today's session, we're going to host during this lunch hour. So be prepared to ask questions. You could post them into the Q&A or chat box, and we'll make sure that we attend to those before the end of our time together. So I don't know how many of you have been out working out using the Under Armour app. I've been using the Under Armour app with some teammates and just trying to, get off that quarantine weight. Okay, let's just be real. And I benefited from it. I've been posting some of my pictures and videos on Instagram. So feel free to join us and tag us at Wearable Tech Ventures. But today we're going to focus in on connected fitness wearables and beyond. And I know there are many that still say, what is wearable tech, Lakeisha? We really don't understand it. We know it from a semblance of a band or whatnot. Well, I'm excited that we have some of the main innovators in this particular space with Lauren and Dr. Matt Trexler, who are going to help expound upon that definition of what it means to have a wearable and to use it for fitness and beyond, as well as opportunities that are available. But before I go any further, let me just provide you with an overview of what we're doing this entire summer. So use this as your adult summer camp experience over the next 4 months for just 1 hour. And if you missed our beginning session with Pankaj Kedia from Qualcomm Technologies, you have to go back and watch it. But guess what? Because you registered, you do get access to that session. So it's important to go back, revisit Wearable Tech 101, where Pankaj provides an extensive history of how wearable tech came to be, where it's growing, and opportunities that are available for us to innovate. And so today we're moving into the connected fitness space, of course, with our representatives from Under Armour. We hope that you join us in July, where we discuss more so what is it like to be diverse in tech and how does wearable technology contribute to that? And this is going to be a really in-depth discussion, not only from the perspective of race, sex, et cetera, but also backgrounds and disciplines and et cetera. So I'm really excited that we're going to have one of our senior advisors joining us, David Canada from the Boeing Company. And then we're going to cap it off in August. This is going to be jam-packed where we're really getting to the heart of it, money. So how are we going to help to finance these innovations? Who are some of those partners in this space that's going to help bring it to fruition? But then also, how does wearable technology influence the way that money is going to be traded and used in the future? And so we have some additional panelists that will be joining us from Eli Lilly, as well as from Procter & Gamble, to speak about the concepts of data, safety, ethics, as well as blockchain and how all of that integrates. So make sure that you go back and register at wearabletechventures.org so that you get all of this knowledge. And we're not just stopping here. Why are we doing this? The reason we're doing this is because we are the global ecosystem for wearable tech. And so what does that really mean? Wearable tech has been growing, and many have come to know it more so during the pandemic because it has been a solution for checking temperatures and checking distance between folks. But it's always been in existence from a medical perspective. Many of our medical providers, and you may have family members that may have devices utilizing wearable tech. Of course, we've seen it totally transform the way that we can count and monitor our progress in the fitness arena. But we also know that with many corporations, it has been used for employee safety, as well as many other measures. And also in the school systems, they're using that as well for tracking kids and for preventing human trafficking, et cetera. So There's a huge opportunity here. And so at Wearable Tech Ventures, again, we're based out of Baltimore, Maryland. Our goal is to develop and promote wearable technology, and our goal is to support 100 startups by 2030. And if you go to our website, you'll see some of our initiatives there to develop a pipeline of innovators. And we're excited because this morning we just got news about how we're growing our reach with underrepresented students as well as the masses, with providing summer camp knowledge about wearable tech and providing these youth, middle school and high school youth the opportunity to become youth ambassadors, certified ambassadors, to work with us on our hackathon as well as other future initiatives. So also, there's some opportunities to develop some funding for innovators in this particular space. And so that's only going to grow with our partnership. So make sure, I know it's a lot of information, make sure you go to wearabletechventures.org, read all about us, make sure you're tuning in to our summer workshop series so that you can see some of the key people. That's what I'm so excited about. We didn't just get anybody. We got the people that are working on this every single day to really transform the way that we live. And so you want to make sure that you're tuning into our workshops and signing up to work with us. So again, this is our mission at Wearable Tech Ventures. And ultimately, we're developing a new generation of innovators, inventors, and investors. We are changing the game. And ultimately, we are serving as the model for what diversity in tech should look like. And I love that because wearable tech, although many people refer to it as a niche, I often say this in private settings. Every business, if they want to stay in business, they're going to need some form of wearable technology on their balance sheet. That's just hands down. So we are getting that running start with assisting with that innovation and developing the talent and the pipeline to do it. So just a few commercials here before we jump into our main content for today. There's an opportunity for you to work with us for free, but over a 72-hour period. So it's like taking you to college, or, it's an intensive program in September 24th through the 26th. And guess what? You get to bring your greatest ideas and solutions to the table, present them, and win prizes and maybe even funding for your initiative. Where else can you do that over a 72-hour period? You could do it with us. So make sure you sign up so that you could get more details about that. And of course, stay tuned with our wearable workshop series. I'm excited that we do have an opportunity, if you have middle school and high school youth, to work with us for a week-long half-day camp in July in partnership with our amazing partners, UMBC. So again, you can register your student, and we do have a link available on our website so that they can join our camp. We actually have 4 camps this summer, but this one is open to the public. And who knows, if you work with us this year, maybe you could work with us next year as we cover the rest of the United States as well as across the globe, because we are international people. We still have some folks in South Africa that want to work with us. I was telling Lauren before we started that we have founders that recently have been reaching out to us from Italy. There are also founders and opportunities throughout Europe and Brazil, et cetera. So we're just getting started, but it's important for us to provide you with the base level knowledge so that you know who we are, where we're going, and come on and join us. So with that said, I am going to begin with an introduction of Lauren Hamlin. And let me tell you, Lauren has been amazing. And Lauren and I haven't met in person yet, but we've been talking over email and everything else for even beyond the start of the pandemic. And so I've been telling her about, hey, we want to do this stuff with wearable tech. And Lauren has been so gracious and patient and just open to provide resources that are just going to blow your mind today. So Lauren serves as the head of the Open Innovation at Under Armour. I have her extensive bio on our website, so I encourage you to read that. I know I'm not giving you justice, Lauren, but I really want you to brag on yourself here, okay?
I don't know. That's a tough act to follow, Lakeisha. I don't know. Thank you, first of all, Lakeisha, for having me today. I am delighted to be involved with Wearables Roundtable. Happy to have Under Armour support the effort, especially you're right here in our backyard in Baltimore. So hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Hamlin. I lead Open Innovation at Under Armour. I've been there for 10 years, and my day-to-day looks like I go and look for startups, processes, inventors, entrepreneurs, bring them back to the business and see if there's a fit with one of our traditional business units, hopefully with a path toward commercialization. And that's really important at Under Armour, our commitment to entrepreneurs. As you may know, Kevin Plank, our founder, was trying to solve a problem. He was a heavy sweater, wanted to stop sweating through his pads at University of Maryland. And so he invented a shirt that would address that problem. So moving forward, we're now, 25 years later, and we're still looking to solve athletes' problems. So I lean more toward the business side of open innovation. And I am delighted to introduce my teammate, Dr. Matt Trexler, who leans more towards the science and tech validation portion of innovation at Under Armour.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having us.
So Matt, I'll stop sharing so you can share yours.
It's good.
And feel free to brag on yourself.
Oh, I don't really brag. So I have been with the company for 8 years. I don't come from this industry at all. My PhD is in material science and engineering. Prior to being here, I worked for the United States Army Research Lab doing novel weapons research and funding of small businesses. So I was hired to kind of have a neutral point of view. I have a reputation for being a little bit of a myth buster. So I'm gentle though, so it's okay.
Yes, the Velvet Hammer. That's what I like to call him.
And I will be driving for Miss Lauren. Can you all see that? And is it the right view?
We see your notes, so if you want to do
Want to do a presentation?
slideshow view, yeah. But
Well, I went into presentation.
and if you go back there, that's fine. You could just
Yeah.
progress from there. Just want to let you know if you had notes, we might be able to see them. No. There we
There
go.
we go.
No, I don't think we have notes. So
Yeah.
Lauren's going to walk us through this.
All right. Thanks, Matt. So today, Matt and I are going to be talking about wearable products, wearable technology as it relates to sports. So next slide, please. So at Under Armour, we are encouraged to start all of our meetings with our mission, purpose, and vision. So our mission: to inspire you with products you never knew you needed and can't imagine living without. Our purpose: we empower those who strive for more. And the part of this that really resonates with me is Under Armour makes you better. And that really means all athletes, not just the elite, not just, the professional athletes, but really all athletes is important to us. It's the core of what we do. It's in our DNA. Next slide, please. So wouldn't be an Under Armour presentation without a video. So this just gives you sort of an overview of Under Armour, the spirit and culture of Under Armour, and where we see potentially connected fitness heading. Go ahead, Matt.
And as a little bit of color, this is just released after I joined the company. So I kind of fell into this kind of world from the Army.
Our job is to make you better, to make all athletes better. One great innovation at a time. The next great athletic innovation isn't available yet. But it's being built at Under Armour right now. I will.
So when that aired, we actually got calls asking when that suit would be available. We call that Future Girl. And people wanted to know, hey, how do I order that? Can I just go ahead and so As Matt will discuss later, there are parts of that technology that actually is available, but of course, that in its full iteration is we're just not there, and who knows if we ever will be. But that's really the what we're heading toward. Next slide, please. So Matt and I see hundreds of companies every year. This is just a list of some of the different companies we see. You have sort of equipment-based tech with Mirror and Peloton. You've got coaching apps like Mustard and Run Coach, Strava. And then you have other things that are not really considered wearables, but should be, that are like hearables and voice assistants. And Aura Ring is sort of finger-based rather than wrist-worn. And then, of course, we can't ignore Apple and the phones that are getting better all the time with the improvement in camera tech, which is changing everything. Next slide, please. So looking at market size, it's interesting. I was surprised by this, that the huge, and then probably not to Matt based on his history, but there's a huge amount in heating. Our portion in this first graph is really biometric monitoring. We're seeing more and more of that, particularly post-COVID, with looking at heart rate variability. You've seen, everyone I think has seen the Whoop band that was alerted people to the possibility of COVID based on heart rate variability and respiration. And then looking at estimated revenue, sports and fitness is a relatively small piece of that pie, but I do think we'll continue to see that increase, particularly post-COVID. Next slide, Matt. So this slide sort of is what Lakeisha alluded to earlier, that wearables really affects practically every business that we can think of. I mean, there's the military, there's health tech, medical, mobile computing. Of course, sports is just such a small piece of that. And so this really shows you how much it overlaps and how really complicated the business is. And that might be why there hasn't really been one player who has emerged and had real staying power, because it is so segmented and overlapping all at the same time. Next slide, Matt. So looking at market analysis, these are numbers from 2019, 3.2 billion global connected apparel market in 2019. I will be interested to see what updated numbers look like, because I think post-COVID, those numbers are really going to be much higher. And if you look at this wearable tech by category and form factor, wrist-worn is still very, that they're the biggest piece there. But I do think you'll start to see that change a little bit with more integrated wearables. We've all seen, you wear your Fitbit for 6 months, you take it off, you charge it, and you don't put it back on. So the goal is to have something that is really already integrated so that you don't have to take that extra step, you remove that pain point when you're going to go do your workout or your run. Next slide. And then this looks ahead to 2022. Again, I think this was done pre-COVID, so I think these numbers will change as well. But you're looking at a $3.15 billion global connected apparel market in 2022, which is huge. And that far surpasses anything that we're doing in sports. It's just across the board. So if you're not looking at wearable tech in your business, you really should be, as Lakeisha said earlier. Next slide, Matt. So this is just an idea of some of the people that we've looked at. So Athos, we were really excited when we saw them in 2012. We thought this is going to be it. This is going to be it. Back then we had done sort of a Armour 39, which is a heart strap, which had some success, but there was just a lot of barriers there. And so we thought that maybe Athos would make a good partner, but it ended up being they just didn't have the tech. There's also, the price point was too high for the average customer, and we didn't really have a lot of input or market data showing that this is what our consumer was looking for. Next slide, Matt. And then this is an example of how things can just go off the rails very quickly. Ohm Signal came out with a sports bra. They got a lot of press. They thought they were going to be the market leader, and they are now bankrupt. So things can go south very quickly in this business. Next. And then there's Strive. So they just actually signed a deal with Connection. They're doing well. It's a compression short. But again, we don't really have strong market data showing that the consumer really wants this technology. And further, the data that's recorded is one thing. Collecting data is not really the struggle. The struggle is making it actionable for the person wearing the tech. And then if you think, You look at the price, then you've got to have more than one pairs for when one's in the wash, then you have battery life, all of these barriers that no one really has created a truly elegant solution yet. So we're still looking toward that. Next slide, Matt. And then Wearable X, she's a great female founder. I love her, she's fantastic. The yoga leggings use haptic technology to sort of cue you to correct your alignment when you're doing yoga. So great product, great founder, but it's very small. I mean, yoga is certainly our customers do yoga, but it's not really our core business. So this wouldn't be a good fit with UA. Next slide. And so when we talk about substitutes, there are other things that are not necessarily wrist-worn band. Of course, there are coaching apps. There are things like Huddle that also put in a recruiting piece along with the customized coaching. Next slide, Matt. And then, as I mentioned earlier, equipment-based solutions like Peloton, Mirror, Equinox Media that are constantly collecting consumer data and attempting to create a bespoke experience, a coaching experience for those athletes. And then other physical products such as Sweaty and other bands that can measure other biometrics like hydration, ECG. We've looked at many of these, and so far, as Matt will tell you, none has really risen to the top. He's had to use his velvet hammer more than once on these technologies. Next slide, Matt. And then you have insoles. We see a lot of those. Sleeves, which I think consumers would maybe find more cumbersome than just a wrist-worn solution. And then again, another professional run coach, which is really geared toward the elite runner and at significant expense. Next slide, Matt. So that gives you an idea of what we see, what I see on a daily basis when we're looking at startups and wearable tech. And Matt is going to take you through sort of the science side of it and his view on where we see wearables going forward. Matt, take it away.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm going to share something that I put together actually for an academic conference. So when I talk to students, I usually use Future Girl as like that key of like what's all going on here. You have aesthetics, you have heart rate, you have thermoregulation, you have temperature, you have all of these things. Everybody thought that it's going to happen. Why hasn't it? So here's a little bit of the velvet hammer. I'm a huge fan. I see a lot of potential in wearables. This is specific towards why don't we see too many shirts that can kind of help us out. So I'll probably rip through it, but it's kind of interesting because one thing you have to understand is 20 years ago, we had a wearable. We had a wearable shirt. I'm biased because this was developed at the Georgia Institute of Technology, where I happen to have my PhD from, but that's how old a wearable shirt really is. This was funded through DARPA. You can see like, conductive thread in this woven. The idea was, hey, I got shot. Where did I get shot? And what else can I monitor? And so it's like, wow, that's really cool, but they did it a really long time ago. And then we see even more examples of how these different shirts kind of came about. And then they kind of moved into, footwear that can do some of the similar things. And all of these are like almost commercial. They were at CES, you can buy them. We kind of talked with that big mesh of all of the different things we think wearables can do. Heart rate monitoring, glucose, heating was actually the most mature of that. And it ranges between really big hacking industrial kinds of things, which I actually really like because you can power this jacket with the same battery that you use your drill with. Not really an Under Armour product, but then you get into something a little bit more sophisticated of a heated base layer. Still, how many people need that, would want that? And it's just such a tricky kind of thing, but there's all of this technology out there, which is why I really like my job. I get to see a lot of cool stuff. There's my batteries. So barriers to mass adoption. Really, cost is always going to be an issue, especially when it comes to footwear or it comes to socks or whatever. So to put it in perspective, we may add a chip to our shoe that costs $5, and that may add to the end consumer a huge cost that we have to then kind of pass on. And so one of the things I learned working for the Army is I could make a better bullet, and if it costs 1 cent more because of the scale, they'd say no. And that's kind of a big issue. I'll go through a lot of these, but washing is another big deal. So we don't wash our iPhones, at least, well, I do, but it's an accident. And I haven't done it in years. But we'll see I'll give you some examples of how washing can get to go wrong. Power consumption's still the biggie. If you noticed in that big map that we showed earlier, the Army wants to augment people using wearables. We really want to build the Iron Man suit. Power is the reason we don't have Iron Man. It's not because of the metal. It's not because of the armor or the batteries or the whatever. It's that arc generator that Tony Stark needs to invent. That is the problem. And that's still going to be true of really any of our wearables. Supply chain for apparel is actually really crazy. And I'll show you an example of how electronics are made and then how a shirt is made, and you'll see that they don't really mix. And so an entire industry has to kind of revamp itself. And then at the end of this, which I found to be completely eye-opening, is you still need to support this. So if I was going to sell a shoe that connected to somebody's phone, I need a whole army of people to be on the phone saying, this is how you fix that. Lauren kind of brought it up too. If we're going to collect all this data, what do we do with it? How do we parse it down to where the consumer can actually use it? Half of the time, even all of the data that our hospitals are collecting, they're only using bits and pieces of it. And so we need to kind of understand how we get at that. Washing is one of the big issues. So I pulled how do you handle these shirts? And so these are just pulled off of the web. This is your wash instructions. And it's hey, you got to wash it by hand in the sink and you got to hang it up, and it'll dry within 24 hours. Well, if I have a run one day and the next day, how many shirts do I need to wear? How many do I need to own? Or I just have to be okay with, a wet kind of thing. Some can be machine washed. That's really cool. Most of the time you still have to hang it on a line, and that's a problem. In reality, we throw everything into the laundry. And that is a huge problem. And it's not just washing, drying is the killer, which I also didn't realize before joining Under Armour, that just how much damage our dryers do. When it comes to power, we have a little bit of a problem. So this is actually what happened when an iPhone got cracked into a washing machine. It's rare, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. So you can blow up your washing machine. And to get around that, we've kind of looked at energy harvesting. You'll hear about piezoelectrics or thermoelectrics. I'm going to charge my iPhone using my body heat from a run. Energy harvesting is not quite there yet. We're not going to be charging a phone. We may be able to use a little bit of that energy harvesting to use to send signals. So I'll build up just enough to send a Bluetooth ping, and I'll be able to use super low power devices. For us, when we built a heart rate monitor, a coin cell lasted over a year, and you didn't have to recharge it. You didn't have to do anything. In our footwear, our connected chip will last the life of a shoe. It's kind of nice because you throw your shoes away, but you don't have to recharge that. And that's a major a major friction point that we kind of removed from folks that have tried this in the past. You know, you have a little chip in your shoe and you take it out and you have to put another one in and all this kind of stuff. We kind of got rid of all of that, and it's worked out pretty well, but it's still one of those tricky things. Let's see where we go from here. This is a cut and sew facility. I've seen them in the United States. I've seen them in China. I've seen them in Mexico. Like, they're all about the same. This is where a lot of our chips and our printing is being made. Class 2, class 3, microelectronics kind of things. The two don't really mix. You can't have a sewing machine in a clean room. Soldering irons around the cut and sew facility doesn't necessarily work out too well either. There's a couple of really good groups in the US that are trying to build this infrastructure to combine them. But it will take almost like a novel type of factory to really mass produce these to where we can move forward. This one just always kills me. Like, I'm like, I've seen so many products and it's like, well, why don't we do this? Or why don't you do that? And it's like, well, if it doesn't connect, whether you built it right or not, you still have to be on the phone. You have to do this. So like for our heart rate monitor, we had like, you know, I think it was like a dozen people that had only the job of saying, yes, I'm sorry, you need to turn it on. You need to make sure your battery is in the right way. So again, entering the space is kind of tricky. But it's probably why you haven't seen too many folks in larger scale get into this. And some of our competitors, and you know, you enter it for a little bit and then you kind of get out because you realize that there's quite a few things that can go wrong bringing this up. Hopefully that was velvet enough, right? Like there really are reasons why you don't walk into take sporting goods and you buy a shirt, or you get a heated garment off the internet and it's amazing right out of the box. You can go on Amazon, you can look up heated garments and look at reviews, and they're some good, some bad. If it's done wrong, you can actually shock yourself. And that's the last story I'll share. I tried one, I sweated through it, and I got like, and they fixed that from now on. But I'm not going to mention any names, but you know, we really do have to be careful combining certain things with our apparel. It's really interesting though, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
Well, Matt, I'm glad that you're alive to tell the story.
Me too. That would have been bad.
Oh my goodness. We do have a couple of questions that are in the box, but I really appreciate both you and Lauren for providing this overview. And it's important. One, we know, okay, there's opportunity, but there's also still quite a few barriers related to safety, looking at sustainability from just the personal care, but then also for the whole fashion ecosystem, right? And I know that that's been a huge conversation that has been evolving over time. If I could start with that whole sustainability piece, as you are looking for new innovations, you know, does that sustainability thought or conversation start early, or is that something that happens later as you are building a relationship with your innovators?
So I'll take that. We have just recently really put a concerted effort around sustainability. We've been, you know, well, just by the way that our apparel is made, it's actually more sustainable than traditional apparel, and we just don't do, frankly, a very good job of talking about our sustainability efforts. So we now have a chief sustainability officer. He is building out a team. We have goals toward reducing our carbon footprint by 50% by 2030. And we are starting from the design up, looking at what sustainability looks like from supply chain, shipping, materials, water usage, dyeing, you know, all of those things across the board. We're actually, Matt and I are involved with a microfiber plastics challenge right now through Conservation X Labs in DC, looking at specifically removing microfiber plastics from the water supply as related to apparel. So we definitely are vested in sustainability, and I think you'll hear more about that moving forward.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that insight. Let me see. Let me go to this question. I have a load of questions here for you. So this is a question. Are you integrating full connectivity into your devices? Example, full LTE connectivity.
Right now, we're focused on connected footwear as part of our plan. And we're still trying to gauge the interest in the consumer and the unmet needs for them. So right now, I mean, we've played with a number of different radio frequencies and whatever. We will continue to support Bluetooth, and just sort of see how much more we can get out of the chip, the information that we come through. And then that's where okay, I have all this data. How do I become a better runner for it? And so we're still just sort of trying to explore those types of things when it comes to connected product.
That's helpful. And so I know that there was, you had a powerful visual there of the dryer. How that impacted, the Apple phone at the time. And then considering some of the challenges that some founders may experience as they're building their companies with that support piece, right? That is huge. So I know that you have an accelerator for founders and innovators that you're working with. Do you foresee in the future perhaps a universal support system where customer service is integrated? And if not, what recommendations do you have for innovators as they're developing their ideas so that they can make sure that they address that for long-term business purposes? I know that was loaded, and let me know if you want me to chop it up or repeat anything.
I think ultimately, I think it would be great if there was a universal support or platform that people that want to get into wearables can come and, build into that platform, be an end user, and have all of the data be handled, or have that service piece kind of taken care of. You'll probably see some of the bigger players in data science and clouds kind of try to take over that. I mean, Amazon's in the field, Google is. Like, there isn't a standard way of doing things, a standard way of iterating, and so that's probably a little bit of white space that I can see building. Whether that's Under Armour's role or not, that's up to some other folks to kind of see. But yes, I could see a really great, like, if you had a platform, or say you had a service that could do that, I think it would definitely help.
That's good to know. I'll start with another question. And for the folks that are on the line, if you have a question, feel free to type it into the Q&A box so that we can make sure that is addressed during this period. This is awesome to have these folks here live with us. But let me just backtrack a little bit to R&D, research and development. And so historically, there's been a challenge within the wearables market with who has been involved in the actual studies and the testing. And so what we know based off of some products that came out of MIT in particular is that many of those studies only involved white males. And I don't know if you're able to share, is there a particular stance, or do you have a clause or a standard for companies that you're working with to make sure that their research is representative, or are there initiatives in place to make sure that market research is really representative? So any thoughts there?
Well, I can take the technical R&D kind of part of, yes, all of those things are important, and we're kind of like, we demand that you take that into consideration. And I'll give you an example, because a lot of the optical wearable sensors do have issues with pigmentation in skin, but also like random things like hair, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So when I review work or research that comes in, I will pay attention to that. And I will ask these questions. I will say, did you try this population? Did you try this population? Why did you try only white males? And in some cases, those are almost like, I'm not going to say red flags, but they're like orangish, to be like, are you guys really, like, you guys got to go back to the drawing board. Now, in some cases, if I'm setting up that study, I will make sure that I am having our key demographics for our consumers kind of work through. And I'll also try to consider those outliers to where it's like, this just might not work for this type of, whatever. Can we at least suss that out and see why? So that the next generation, we might actually be able to solve it. So I'm taking your data, I'm looking at the way you're doing it. Absolutely, we pay attention to that.
And then from the business side of it, Lakeisha, when I'm looking at startups, when I first started, I was one of the few women in the room at these events that I attend. Thankfully, that's changing, too slowly for my liking, but it is changing. So when I'm looking at startups, one of the things almost inevitably that comes up when I'm looking at either their advisory board or their executive leadership, if I don't see diversity, that's a red flag to me, because not only is it just the right thing to do, there's study after study that shows diversity increases your business. It just does. It makes you a better company. So I feel like every presentation I do now, I bring that up, but we certainly need more girls going into STEM and get in engineering, which Matt and I have had some, pre-COVID, we had some exposure to, but that's one of my big charges to startups is make sure you are hitting that diversity piece, not just because you want to check a box or, but because it will make your business stronger. There's no question. It's been shown time and time again.
Absolutely. And for those that are in the audience today and those that are watching this in the future, I have to, be a fan really quickly. Not only, have I been a fan of Under Armour because they're, in Baltimore and there's, ties from an academic side, but even when initially interacting with Lauren, that was one of her main messages was, okay, the future of this workspace, who is at the table? Do we have the right people at the table and are we representative? And I just want to thank you for, and we're still going to do, Q&A, but I just wanted to, pause and thank you for having that mindset and for being that leader to drive this initiative to say, we need more people at the table. We need to be representative and diverse means so many different things, but, making sure it's amazing to be cognizant that, okay, I'm the only one here right now, but I want to make sure that I have other chairs here that are open so that we can, create a better platform. And so with that being said, and you may not be able to share all of this right now, but if you're able to, what are some of your goals and aspirations for the future of Under Armour and wearables? And, a follow-up to that would be, how would the Open Innovation Center, add to that with your accelerators, et cetera, if there's a tie?
So we don't have a formal accelerator. What we do have is platform called Idea House, which is our online idea submission portal, which is really unique in our business. Our competitors, if you were to send in a submission, unless you have a patent, they're not going to talk to you. So Under Armour, because of Kevin Plank's philosophy, wants everyone, regardless of whether you're a garage inventor or you're Dow Chemical, to be able to send in your ideas through this portal. It's currently being redesigned and it's going to launch next month. So I'm really excited about that. Stay tuned for that. And prior to this, it was its own third-party sort of standalone site. You really had to look for it. It's going to be right there on UA.com, so people will be able to access it. You submit your idea. It's reviewed by the team. And if it's something we're interested in, then we get in touch and we make sure that there's an equitable deal both for you and for us, without having to get patent protection from the get-go. So that is really commitment to entrepreneurship and the true spirit of open innovation. A lot of people, even within Under Armour, don't really understand what open innovation means. And that means opening it up outside the walls of Under Armour. We have plenty of people, smart people within our walls, but we can't do it all. So we have to really leverage those other startups and companies, entrepreneurs and inventors who have new ideas that they can bring to us that we can help bring to life.
And I love that. I'm excited. And so we'll help to announce that and share it. And folks that know me and work with me, they know that I am incredibly protective of our pipeline, of our founders, especially when presenting them to investors as well as partners. And so what I love that you mentioned was, making sure that there's an equitable type of deal. And that's important because too many founders have been taken advantage of. And I've been vetting, I've gone coast to coast, meeting investors. And in many cases said, nope, I'm not introducing this person to that or that because I didn't feel it was safe or equitable. So thank you for making sure, that is in place.
I think that's important too, having that, part of why it's not the only reason, but a big reason why I wanted to be involved with this is because I had such a rapport with you and I did right from the very beginning. And so if a startup comes to me and they're a jerk, you could have the best product in the world and I'm not going to work with you because I don't want to have to take phone calls with you and navigate that. So I mean, there's soft skills are really super important. And you're right that there are a lot of startups who are overlooked and they don't get a shot. So if we can help that, and the other side of that also is in fact, most of the concepts that come through right now are not a good fit for us. But for example, we have an exclusivity with Thermos. So if someone sends us a water bottle concept, we're not going to consider that. But if it's a really good concept and a good startup, I might be able to make that connection to them. So it's not just about making connections for Under Armour. It's really fostering this innovation hub and making those connections. That's really what it's all about for us.
I love it. There's a technical question I'm going to make sure I read here. But before I do that, can you speak a little bit more about the patent process and not asking you to be USPTO, but are you expecting founders and innovators to come with a patent? And then how can they feel reassured that they'll be okay if they don't have an idea already patented and presented through your open source?
Sure. So I'm a paralegal, so that's why I run Idea House. And so we don't require that patent because it's a long, expensive process. We're not in the business of stealing people's ideas, so you can feel completely confident that it is kept very confidential. We don't sign NDAs in early stage, primarily because we don't know what another side of the business may be working on when this idea comes through. So I wouldn't be able to sign an NDA early on until we see that we're getting a little further down the road. We do have a patent attorney on staff who would review a patent if that were the case. We haven't really gotten into helping people get their patents just because we don't have the bandwidth to do that. But I can tell you 100% that it's completely confidential and there is no risk. And you really don't need that patent from the very beginning to get the consideration from us.
I love it. So that's going to be a valuable resource for those of you that are watching. And then also, if you have questions about patent, we do partner with USPTO, and we'll be taking some of our panel with us for the InventionCon in August. But let me get to this other technical question. So do you have your own fitness and health related algorithms, including fall detection and similar features, or will you be relying on a platform such as service providers like us for wearables?
We do a little bit of both. Right now, we have our own algorithms teams. Having said that, just like anything, we'll evaluate other people's algorithms, and whether that's protected, unprotected, whatever, like if it integrates with our system and there's interest by our consumer, then we're more than happy to introduce those folks and kind of offer that up into our platforms. But for right now, they're ours. We have a really nice, talented group that builds them, tests them, but also evaluates the incoming ones that are out there.
I love it. And so my inner nerd is like really shining right now. I'm so excited. I have so many more questions, but we don't have a lot of time. But I do want to ask one more before we close out. And this is more so a benefit to our pipeline. And we have middle and high school students as well as college ambassadors that are working with us here at Wearable Tech Ventures. And as they're being exposed not only to this particular session, but other sessions, let's say they put on their dream board that, hey, they want to work with Under Armour at some point in their career, or maybe you're their ultimate goal. What are some recommendations you have for our future innovators so that they can prepare themselves to be a valuable asset to the Under Armour family?
Well, I mean, I would say depth and breadth of experience. I mean, if you look at Matt's coming from Army. I was an editor in publishing for a very long time. And so you don't necessarily have to have that engineering background. It certainly helps if you're going to be in that technical world, but just perseverance. I mean, we get, for example, our rookie program in the summer, we get over 10,000 applications for 300 positions. So it is competitive. I think someone said it's harder to get in than it is to get into Harvard, which is insane. But perseverance, making connections, having a really strong LinkedIn profile, and just sending out invitations and meeting people, going to events, I think, and creating that network. It's how I ended up at Under Armour. I was on the sidelines at a lacrosse game and had graduated with my paralegal degree, had left publishing, and now our chief strategy officer was looking for a paralegal to open the innovation lab. And that's how I ended up where I am, and was able to build that out into the position I have now. So I think just being open to opportunities and always be learning and making connections.
And just to add to that, especially for high school and college students, we find a lot of times we need to train the folks fresh out of school. Say they come from a textile school and they're amazing at textiles. We spend an awful lot of time teaching them how to deal with a multidisciplinary group. I'm a great example. I am a super geeky, ridiculous nerd that now has to befriend and work with folks that are artists, and they're very creative, and they're this and they're that. And then unfortunately, the two nuts like us have to talk to somebody who needs to be at the bottom line. So I stress, and what you're seeing in engineering schools and a lot of schools is that capstone projects, all of those things are really starting to open up. So it's not just like the material science department working with the material science department. Like, we fund classes that have a business student in with an engineering student in with an artist, because that in our industry, that's how you work. And it really does help us to see that you can work in that multidisciplinary team from massive backgrounds. It's a trend that I'm really seeing in academia. Like, there are more and more schools are getting behind it, and we think it's a great idea.
I love it. And you just provided the best segue to our close and to our promo for our hackathon, which is September 24th through the 26th. And folks, this is free, but it provides that real world experience where you get to bring your genius to the table, regardless if that's in writing or if it's in engineering or arts or business, whatever it is, you have something to bring to the table. Our leaders here, Lauren and Matt, demonstrated that today. And so, if you are seeking, a new career or trying to drive your career in a new direction, or if you are an innovator and you want to bring it to the table, this is why you need to be at the hackathon. Whether you win a prize, formal prize or not, the ultimate prize is getting that experience working with people from multiple disciplines and being able to come up with a solution to a problem that we face every single day. So I hope that you enjoyed yourself today. I hope that you share your experience online, encourage other folks to register for our other summer workshop series. We have 2 more available for adults, but of course the recordings will always be available. And then we do have some media and some articles that will be published very soon. So be sure to check our website or to make sure that you're checking your email as we share the Technically Media article that's coming out. And basically, I echoed exactly what Lauren and Matt just said. So Lauren and Matt, thank you so much. This is just the beginning. It's just the beginning. There's so much opportunity here. And it's so much better when we work together, which is what we're doing. So with that being said, do you want them, as far as connecting, do you have any links or things that you want to share with them within the last 30 seconds here?
You can find me on LinkedIn.
Me too.
LinkedIn.
Probably easier.
Yes.
LinkedIn it is. And then you said next month at underarmour.com.
Yep. On UA.com will be the launch of Idea House.
UA.com. So make sure you're paying attention to Idea House. Also, make sure you're staying tuned to wearabletechventures.org and our social media channels. And you can always volunteer and work with us. All right. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. And that concludes today's session.
Thank you so much, Lakeisha. So happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.